Hi, everybody. Happy you're here. Happy we're together and able to talk about temperature control and all that goes into it with respect to supply chain transparency. For those of you who have not spoken with me personally within the last year, you do not know this, but we have been having a hell of a time with our temperature control in the chocolate factory. Reason being is, well, we use equipment that majorly heats up the space. Also, it's just getting hotter in general. So it's a little bit more challenging to control temperatures in here because out there's a lot going on as well that impacts it. We really needed temperature control in the unit to be able to function. We were doing kind of crazy things like scheduling people on very particular days within particular hours, deciding which equipment we can use with however many people were in the building at any point in time. It was just kind of like a lot just because we didn't want to generate any more heat because it was already so hot. For anyone who knows anything about chocolate, you will know that chocolate does not like being toasty. It just wants to be kept cold.
So this is our HVAC system. I know it's loud. That's also our HVAC system. And I need to put one more unit like this, which is here, up there.
Temper and have that nice little snap when you break the bar. Whatever, have a nice little shine. We were very much struggling with that. We had 3 floor AC units set up, so like the ones you put in your house or apartment. They were up on the shelves, and the hoses were going out through a venting system to the outdoors. There was one on the floor that was, conveniently placed, so we trip all over it. And honestly, they just were not making the cut. It was so stressfully hot in here. I won't go into more details about that, but essentially, it was not a fun time. So, thankfully, we got a grant from the Vancouver Chinatown Foundation, and that helped us mostly cover the cost of an HVAC unit. Love it. It's nice and chilly in here, just the way the chocolate gods intended. And that's all good. Like, we're very pleased. We wouldn't have to think about this at all anymore other than to change the filters. Just some basic maintenance. However, that is not how I operate, and that is not how Zimt operates. So here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to talk about everything that went into getting this system up and running. And it is a fantastic system. It has really brought down my stress levels a lot, and for that I am grateful. However, I know that that comes at a huge cost, and I'm not talking about the cost that's on the invoices for the install and the materials. That's not it at all, because the thing is, and you may remember an old video I had out about negative externalities. What is that? Quick recap. So, a lot of activities involve unintended spillover effects. Okay, here's an example. Smoking. Someone just wants to smoke. They are addicted, it's their crutch, we all have them. And they're smoking, they're having a good time. Not really, but they're smoking. And all of the smoke goes out into the world. And then it hits someone like me in the face. And I get really upset because I'm dedicated to my skincare, maybe a little vain, and I feel personally offended. That is a negative externality. That is an impact of an activity that created an unintended consequence for an innocent bystander, being me and my skin barrier. Probably also not good for my lungs. Anyways, so same thing goes with any sort of manufacturing, right? And let's just talk about this HVAC system. It's predominantly made out of stainless steel. There's a lot of copper, and there's even a little bit of cobalt, and we'll get into that in a sec. I think the main takeaway before we delve any further is all of these are minerals that are buried deep in the earth and have taken a long time for the earth to produce. It's not just like a quick renewable resource. And in saying that, I want to remind us that even renewable resources should be treated with the utmost respect. But these have taken a really, really long time to create. When we use them, we ought to be real careful. Talking about stainless steel first, it is very intensive to refine and uses a lot of resources to get to its final state. Same thing with copper, tons of water. There's also soil pollution from mining. Also, horrible things like habitat destruction. Like, it takes up parts of the earth where someone else may be living, right? And mining companies, they don't have the most benevolent rep for a reason, and it's because they see what they want and they need to go get it. That's how they make money. They don't. I'm not saying this for all of them, but they don't particularly care about who is surviving on top of the resources they want to extract. So that could be wildlife. A lot of indigenous groups have been treated horribly to acquire these minerals, and from firsthand experience, my uncle was in the mining industry, may he rest in peace. And the stories I heard of some operations when I was a little kid will haunt me for the rest of my life. And these atrocities still keep happening. Getting to atrocities. So we got the stainless steel, copper, and then we got the cobalt. So copper and cobalt are interesting ones. Um, Copper, a lot of it is mined in Chile. The largest mine in the world is the Escondida. And, I've looked into it. Their human rights side of things seems to be like, okay, for their workers, that is. I don't know what it's like for indigenous communities and any cost that they have had to bear for this mine potentially taking over their land. I also don't know in terms of wildlife. It's a big mine out in the wilderness. Someone was bound to be living there before they came along. It's a very old mine. However, copper is also mined in places like the DRC, as well as cobalt. So cobalt is of particular interest these days because it is used frequently in lithium-ion batteries, and the largest consumer of those is electric vehicles. When we think we're being virtuous by purchasing an electric vehicle all brand new, because we're not going to be supporting the oil and gas industry anymore, well, I mean, that's a very good thing in some ways. However, they are still extremely resource intensive, and that includes with cobalt. Cobalt has an exceptionally muddy supply chain. It's very unregulated. There are a lot of these artisanal mines where there's no personal protection equipment. There's often children involved in mining in highly unsafe conditions. And then, China buys up a lot of this and sells it on, and everyone at the top of the supply chain gets real rich. And then all these poor people at the bottom are barely surviving. Like, so much so to the point that they're just wanting to get through the day. Like, they aren't even thinking about, proper ventilation or gloves or tools or anything like that. This is who is bearing the cost for a lot of the luxurious technology we are enjoying nowadays, and how cobalt is used specifically for us now. I mean, it's in the phone I'm recording on, and in this phone I'm recording on, I can connect to the thermostat in here, which has a lithium ion battery as backup in the event of a power surge. I don't know whose life was put at risk, who paid the true cost to make this happen, but I don't want it to go unnoticed. That is the absolute bare minimum least I can do. So, here are a couple things that we can do. One, we got to treat our electronics with respect. They are not just disposable. They should not just be disposable. Remember, legality is not always morality. So we got to do better than the legal system. One of these things is treating our electronics with respect. One thing that I'm implementing is I am no longer letting my phone charge overnight. That keeps the battery in tip-top shape. So I have to be organized and keep my phone charged before I go to bed. And I would encourage you to do the same to extend the life of your electronic device. Also, switching off our laptop at least once a week. That also preserves the life of that device. Not buying what we don't need. Like, there is no one on the planet. I cannot think of anyone on the entire planet who needs the latest iPhone. I just trying to think. Like even the CEO of Apple, they don't need it. Like they truly don't need it. If they don't need it, you don't need it. So the less we demand for these new electronics, the better. Because really, we should be having more robust recycling programs in place. We should be supporting more robust recycling programs for our electronics before demanding the senseless creation of new ones. So buy used. That's a big one. And take care of what you've got. I mean, as someone who has a 2011 MacBook Air who is just like struggling for every breath, I know that it is a challenge, but we still got to treat them right, try and remove some of the unnecessary files, etc. I'm not saying it's fun, take them to a specialist if you can, but you know, being enslaved in the mining industry is also not fun, and we don't want to put that on anyone, and we don't want to destroy any habitats. On to something a little bit more enjoyable, in my opinion. So now that we got this temperature control, yay! We can use our oven again. There was a time there where we couldn't actually use our oven. And for those of you who know our baked goods, you know our baked goods, and you know that that's sad that we could not use our oven. But we have turned that ship around. We can now use our oven again. And we are going to be doing a cookie fundraiser. That's right. So what we'll do here is what we're going to be doing to celebrate the ability for us to use our oven again because it's cool enough to control the temperature of the rest of the facility is we're going to offer a cookie drive, a fundraiser, if you will. So you can order your cookies, and we're going to be donating 10% of all sales to the Human Rights Watch initiative. And they really have their finger on the pulse with respect to mining legislation and human rights. And that's something we for sure want to support. Honestly, 8-year-old Emma really wants to support this because 8-year-old Emma remembers hearing some really horrible things about the mining industry. So if you could help her out, if you could help all of our brothers and sisters out who are very much desperate to try and survive and who have found themselves in these artisanal mines, if you could help the animals out whose homes have been destructed to build these mines, that would be great. And I'll leave more information down below. Thank you so much for your time. So clearly Zimt is somewhat of a chocolate company, but we're more of a ethics communication company, conveyor of ethics company, whatever we are. We just want to help do better. Thank you. Oh, and you can join us in that.